Live. I'd like to welcome everyone to another episode of Heart to Heart with Bree. I'd like to welcome my guest, Maxine Latimer-Tremble. Maxine, would you please introduce yourself to the viewers?
Hi, I'm Maxine Latimer-Tremble, and yes, I'm wearing a mask because my topic is emotional masking. And I am going to go in deeply in telling you why this mask is on my face. So, I am a clinician and I've been working with all ages. I've been working with children from 0 to 6, from 6 to 25, which are, adolescent. And currently, I am working in a sober living facility for substance abuse and mental health. So, mental health and substance abuse, that's what I'm doing right now. I love what I'm working. I am a licensed pastor. I went to international seminary and I am married, freshly married to a pastor as well.
Wonderful. And tonight's topic is emotional masking. And I'd like to let the viewers know if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to post them in the chat. And so we'll jump right into it. Maxine, what is emotional masking?
Wow, Bree. As you all see, I'm wearing a mask. It's not Mardi Gras. It's not Mardi Gras time. I'm wearing a mask because emotional masking is when you suppress your emotions, you hide your emotions and your behaviors when you're in a difficult time, or you're experiencing difficulties or trauma or grief, right? And sometimes or oftentimes it is intentionally, and sometimes it can be unintentionally, meaning that you're not conscious of what you're doing, you're just masking your feelings.
Is it unhealthy?
Yes, it is unhealthy. Emotional masking is not healthy and it can lead to numbers of negative consequences. And I'm going to take my mask off so my viewers can see my face. But I had to show what it's like when you mask. You're a different person. You're two person in one. So you have two sides to you because my mask, it has one side purple and one side green. So this is how we operate when we are masking, two sides. And oftentimes, that side is suppressed inside. And it can be joy, it can be sadness, it can be grieving, it can be anything, social norms, it can be stereotype, bias, whatever you're going through, you're suppressing, you mask it to show to show that you're not going through something.
I appreciate the visual because it gives me a better understanding. So I really do appreciate that. Why do people suppress their emotions?
So people suppress their emotions for different reasons. Um, Maybe mental health. They are going through some mental health issues or concerns, and they're, for social acceptance. And they don't want someone to know that they're masking. Maybe identity issues. You know, going through identity issues and don't want someone to know that they're masking. Maybe you're burnout. You're in a job and you're burned out and you don't want someone to know that you're masking. Or it's just that, um, emotional emotional issues that you have been through, maybe sexual abuse, psychological abuse, and emotional abuse, that you have been through. And oftentimes it starts from you are a child. So adverse child experiences or effects are trauma that a child experience inside their home or environment, and that child didn't get a chance to deal with that trauma. Those trauma are traumas that are not dealt with, and it goes through that individual until that individual is a adult or an adult, and it's hard for that individual to get rid of those traumas. Like it can be an accident, it can be you have served in the service, it can be anything that you have been through. So you want to be accepted, you don't want to be rejected. So you
Yes.
mask because you don't want to be rejected from your environment or social norm or whatever situation you are in.
Where is this behavior more prevalent? Would you say it's more prevalent social situations, the workplace, church, or the home? Or would you say it's equal across the board?
I would say it starts from the home. It starts from the environment. And an individual as a child masked because of strict discipline inside of the home. That's where it started from, right? And you tend to tune out your parents or your dad or your mom, right? Or you mask, right? And then this is, where I used to be a school teacher. And I used to I used to be a counselor and a school teacher in the classroom, and I used to work with kids. And oftentimes, the behavior that you see at school is not the behavior at home. So that child will either mask the behavior at school or mask the behavior at home. So this is where something is happening inside of the home, and that child is masking something. So when the child is at school, the behavior is different. And this continues, it's a pattern. It continues until right up until adults. Sometimes the church, something is happening to you, you don't want anyone to know, you don't want anyone to a bias or stereotype, you mask your behavior. So this behavior often into a certain socioeconomic environment, that it is normal to mask your feelings just to be accepted in society.
Let's talk about the psychological damage of emotional masking.
The psychological damage is where you may have mental health issues. Some of these mental health issues are stress. Many of us are no stranger to stress, anxiety, depression, suicidal thoughts, even leads to suicidal, someone taking their life. And this is often where you have a friend or a neighbor and they're masking their feelings. It's like husband and wife, and you think everything okay. And one day the husband come in and kill the wife and then kill the husband, right? Something happened, some trauma, some suicidal, some rejection, some financial barriers or issues going on that causes that person to, or he or she, to mask their feelings and their emotions. And then this may cause to a mental breakdown that take his or her life. And another thing that can cause where illnesses, chronic illnesses from masking, masking your feelings, that can cause chronic illnesses, like heart problem, stress related problems that you are experiencing, stomach issues. So those are some of the things that can occur while you're masking.
Have we as a society become conditioned to believe that our true selves are not good enough and we do not fit in?
That's a good question, Bree. Good question. Because society has conditioned us and trained us that we have to assimilate with what is happening around us, right? So, for example, you see something on the TV, you want to be like that person, or you want to drink or eat like that person, and you want to change the way you look. So this brought in this where self-esteem and self-worth as well affects that individual, because you're no longer liking the way you look or the way you sound. I have an accent, and sometimes I want to mask my accent, right? Because I want to be accepted in whatever environment I am in. So sometimes social environment causes us to mask our feelings and our emotions, and whatever is around us, based on the time as well, too, the era as well. Yeah.
Now, is this when does this behavior usually start? I know earlier you mentioned something about childhood. Is it Can we say it starts in childhood, or is it initially triggered by an incident?
It can trigger by an incident. So anything, you know, a job loss, lost in losing something, losing a loved one, you know, uh, you know, you're in a job and you don't feel accepted, or you're in an environment you're not accepted, losing your home, and it leads to risky behaviors. And sometimes, something is happening to you, and this is where you use substance, sexual behaviors and different things, risky behaviors to mask your feelings. You start lying, start staying, isolated, or doing things for you not to show that you are masking your behavior. Yes.
So, like, usually, like, when there are marital affairs, things of that nature, can it be a part of emotional masking? Because I always assumed, hey, this person just wasn't in love with their spouse anymore. They wanted something fresh and new, and they decided to just, hey, go for it.
Yeah, we often think that way, right? But that's not the reason. The breakdown starts, something triggered the breakdown. I always say this, when two persons married, there's always something that connects that person. And it's so often are that we do not work on whatever that connection is to for it to grow, and that's where that separation comes, right? Or you feel like you don't connect to the person anymore, and it's some emotional issues that is happening to the person. And hurt people.
It's true.
So oftentimes we go in relationships expecting that he or she can solve our problems, but we bring in our, suppressed emotions inside of the relationship, and it caused more emotion because those emotions were not dealt with. And the other party cannot deal with your emotion, and that's why there's a breakdown. So you mask your feelings until, mental health issues break down, and a lot of things happening where he or she may not want to be in the marriage anymore. So yes, there's a breakdown, dysfunctional in the marriage, and we mask our feeling until we decided, okay, enough is enough, or I don't want to be a part of this anymore.
It's just you just described my marriage right there. You know, I remember I was married for almost 25 years,
Right.
and it was a I was miserable for a long time, but I kept it in
Hmm.
because I was thinking about my children, the
Hmm.
good of the family. So
Hmm.
I held my true feelings in, but it got to the point where I realized this is just not for me anymore.
Right.
And by the time I divorced, I was emotionally damaged, and I just didn't realize how badly damaged I was until the end of the marriage. And during that time, I lost my eldest child. But I
Wow.
had to, it was going through therapy that helped me, and it took years to make sense of everything that happened. It gave me a better sense of, because I didn't understand what was going on with my ex-husband.
Hmm.
I just saw him as a jerk. I mean, to be honest with you.
Hmm.
But as life has gone on, I
Hmm.
have a better understanding of what was going on. But at the time, I wish that I had just seen the situation for what it was and moved on with my life, because I've learned you can't save people that
No.
don't want to be saved. You cannot change another person's behavior if they don't want to change it. I'd like
Right.
you to address that.
Right. I always say to my client that you cannot change another person, but you can change yourself.
Yes.
So this is where you have to take daily perspective or evaluation of yourself. What are you doing? That person is doing what he or she know to do or knows what to do. What are you doing? Are you making more problem into the relationship, or you are trying to build on yourself, strengthen yourself, build on your self-worth? self-worth and your self-esteem, so you can be manage yourself, to be a better version of yourself. And once you start doing that, oftentimes the opposite, the person, your partner or someone in the relationship, always come to you and say, "What are you doing? You are not nagging me anymore. You're not fussing me, asking me what time I'm, let me, what's on your phone, or who am I talking to? I see that you are stronger." So that person wants to change because you are changing. You're not looking on he or she behaviors. You're looking on your behavior and how you can strengthen yourself so you can be a better version of yourself.
Now, for the person that's married to the one that's involved in the emotional masking, because what I have found, and I can say it for myself, is that I put the work into myself. I put the
Mhm.
work in to change because I had to see that, sometimes you get caught up in negative behavior without even realizing it.
Right,
And then
right,
when I realized, you know what, I don't like the toxicity of this situation. I'm tired of the arguments, the fighting.
right,
So I tried to ignore that and tune all of that out. But I
right,
saw that he was still stuck in that place. He fed off the drama. And
right,
and I just outgrew the situation. I can't say it any other way. I
right,
just didn't want to be caught up in that anymore.
right.
So do you think that's the reason why a lot of these marriages end, because maybe one spouse outgrows the other and just decides, you know what, enough is enough?
So it can be. And another main factor is lack of communication.
Yes.
Once the communication is broken and it cannot be repaired, right? So oftentimes you have tried and tried and tried, and that's it. This is where you have to say, okay, this is the final straw, and I have to live. I have to build myself, and you have to live and build yourself as well. Yeah,
Self-preservation, self-preservation.
self-preservation.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
Juliet Nelson. Hi, Juliet. Thank you for joining us. She says, good information. Emotional masking is not a good way to cope. Over time, one can take on a completely new identity, losing a
Yes.
sense of self, and not a
Right.
healthy way to cope.
Right, right. I love the fact that she mentioned, um, new identity, losing this your sense of self, which is important because it has changed you completely, where you have become a different person. And sometimes it's toxic. Sometimes it's not good, and you have to put a mask on to actually be that person. So you are two persons in one body. I remember, I love this topic. I remember at one time I did it in the classroom with the kids, and the pain that those children had talked about that they experienced, you would never imagine. It's like you say, okay, miss, I'm asked because this is my pain. I cannot share my pain with someone else. They won't understand. They will say, I am a child. Why am I going through all this pain? And they will say, this is my dark side. One will say, my dark side is evil. My dark side would like to do this. And then when I do it with adults, it's like this, there's a side where I have joy. So today, based on my emotional, what I'm going through, I may be happy, but the next day, my dark side is my pain, my past trauma, my addictions, which is trapping me and causing me not to take off the mask. So what do? I numb myself. So it's not healthy to mask.
It's definitely not. How important is it to articulate our true emotions? I'd like to welcome Irene Roper. Thank you so much for joining us. Because listening to you, I can make the connection with a lot of things that have taken place in my own life.
Mhm.
When you don't want to admit to certain emotions,
Right.
like I mentioned earlier, the death of my son, and it's been years. And there
Mhm.
are people who feel like, move on already, get on with it. It's
Right.
been years. But
Mhm.
at the end of the day, it's not so cut and dry. It's like, that is a pain that I live with every day. And I got to the place where it's not too many people that I talk to about my son anymore. I
Right.
was fortunate last Christmas when I found myself in that struggle. I reached out to Juliet, who really helped me. And
Hmm.
I realized it made a difference to talk about it, to say I'm hurting, I am like really feeling sad, because holding on to it, I have found that, like you talked about numbing. I
Hmm.
went back to eating foods that I'd stopped eating years ago. I find myself like withdrawing from a lot of friendships because it's like I just don't feel that a lot of people want to hear about my sadness or really, I don't want to say they don't care, but it's like I don't want to be the wet blanket. I don't want to
Hmm.
bring anyone down with what I may be experiencing. And this is not every day,
Right.
but it's like I'm realizing that the doubt, when I'm feeling pretty down, I know what it is, because sometimes I try to brush it off because I don't want to go there.
Right, right, right. So, if just as you mentioned, if anyone, any listeners finding themselves in isolation or sudden changes in your behavior or fear of stigma or discrimination or camouflaging yourself, this is where you know something is happening to you, right? Or you're trying to gain social acceptance. You want to be always into that socialite, you know, um, environment. This is where you know something is happening to you, and you find someone you can trust. Oftentimes, don't be afraid of mental health therapists and professional. If you find there are good ones out there, you
Yes.
can talk with them and you can get help. And there are some people, spiritual people as well. We cannot leave out the spiritual people, because that's
Yes.
help the, some foundation and some roots that you can hold on to, and you can build your strength. So you can talk with someone, as you mentioned, you found someone that you can talk to. It's good to take the mask off, mask on, mask off, so that you can live, right? And I sure you had to take your mask off, right, Bree? So you
Yes.
can live, right?
Yes.
You didn't want to stay where you were, because where you were was not a good place.
It wasn't
So you
productive.
wasn't
Yeah.
productive, right? And if you find yourself not producing daily, this is where you have some form of anxiety or depression, right? If you find yourself not doing your daily activity, something is happening to you. There is a mask on, some trauma, some trauma that you have not dealt with, that you need to deal with. You have to take the mask off, and you seek a professional. You know,
Yes.
if you have insurance, right, don't be afraid of your EAP insurance. It's kind of, you're paying for it, Bree. You
Yes.
are paying for it, and you get 3 free counseling,
Yes.
even though you're paying for it. And that 3 can help you take the mask off so you can be successful. So find a professional, talk with a person. If you have a good friend that can listen, and reflective listening is important, and can listen to you and not to tell you how to do things, but just listen, it will help until you can find a trained professional. Sometimes get out of the home, do some mindfulness, some meditation. Meditation are different forms and different fashion. Walk, do some walking, do something that can take your mind out of your situation, so that you can be productive throughout the day. And you don't have to be productive right throughout the day. You can actually, at some point of your life, you can gain something back.
Yes.
So that is important. Going to church, a lot of people may not say, I've worked with a lot of people who don't go to church, and it's okay. If you can
Yes.
find ways of strengthening yourself, mindfulness, walking. If you have a dog, you allow the dog to give you happiness and to, build yourself, do daily self evaluation. I always do this mindfulness, which I love, using your five senses. Five,
Yes.
four, three, two, one. What is around you, what you can see, what you can you can smell, so that you can build yourself daily. Because if you can't, then you're going to find yourself trapped into emotional masking daily, just to keep yourself going, just for surviving.
Yes. I
Mhm.
definitely agree with you on that. Irene Roper wants to know, why is there this stigma in the Black community about seeking therapy?
Ah, because of what we were told as, a lack of awareness.
Yes.
Back then, a lot of people, uh, mental health was something else. It was, if I can say this, it's voodoo, it's obia, it's witchcraft. Is it okay to say this right here? Because
Hey,
back
you
then,
yeah.
when someone had some mental issues, you said that person, some spirits or some bad
I know
things
in
on
Jamaica
that
it
person, and
was
they would take the person to the front of the church, and they would pray, 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 and nothing happens, right? I'm not
yes.
bashing the church, and I'm a
No,
spiritual
but
woman
it's but
myself,
it's what you're
you know?
saying is true. I remember the stigma attached to mental illness when I was growing up, especially when I lived in Jamaica. People
Yes,
weren't very kind. The foo-foo boy, the foo-foo
yes,
girl, that
yes,
kind of reference. And people were like having breakdowns, and I think they saw it as a weakness. I don't know
right,
if I'm correct, but yeah, Irene is saying as it relates to seeking help for mental health. I remember when I first started to go for therapy, there were those that looked down upon me for it and saw it as a weakness. But I'm very thankful that I went through that process, because it helped me to survive a divorce. It helped me to survive the death of my child and
yes,
making sense of life. Because when you have to start over, especially when you're in your late 50s,
right.
it's not very easy.
I
So
love
I do think therapy is very important.
I love the fact that you mentioned therapy, because one of the reason why the stigma is not so much anymore is because a lot of people have been going to the doctor or mental health professional, and more diagnostics or diagnoses have been given to that person, and the diagnostic, which is the ASM-5, are more open to more mental health issues, so that people can know what is happening to them, and they are more aware. They're, social, more on the web. People can read up more awareness, what is happening to me, and they can read up their signs and their symptoms, and they can go in and say, okay, doctor, this is what happening. I always say this: always kind of write down your symptoms that you are having, so that when you go to this professional, you can say, this is what happening to me, and this is what happening, the time of day it is happening, so you can help to take the mask off as
Yes.
well. So more awareness, right, is happening than back then. Back then, we didn't have that awareness. Lack of education,
Yes.
people are more educated now, so that they are more versatile on what is happening to them, right?
Yes. Yes, I think it's important for us to have that dialogue. I think the more conversations we have about this issue, I think it will be very helpful. I've shared on a previous podcast with Juliet about, I used to have panic attacks, and
Right.
it was very unpleasant, and it was very scary, and there was a lack of understanding. And it was a good friend of mine, Carol, and her husband, Stuart. They were
Mhm.
very supportive, and they helped me to realize, because I honestly thought I was losing my mind.
Right.
And it really helped me to see that, okay, there's help for this. And I was able to get through it. So, like now, when I talk to anyone who has had that issue, I am happy to share with them what I went through. And they are relieved to meet someone who has been through it,
Mhm.
because they know the understanding is there, but the hope is there too.
Right. Right, right. And as you mentioned, panic attack too is something triggers your
Yes.
panic attack. You know, you have a behavior, but something always, what happens before the behavior? Right. Something
Yes.
always trigger known and unknown events that triggers your panic attack, so causes you to be in that emotional state. And
Yes.
sometimes, oftentimes, I remember I had a client that said, I don't know what triggered my panic attack. There wasn't a trigger. I said, yes, there was. Let's sit down and see what happened before. And when we went through it, he realized what had happened. Simple things can trigger just a
Yeah,
smell,
it's true.
just the light, just the noises, can trigger your panic attack. It's untreated trauma sometimes,
Yes.
past hurt, sexual abuse, psychological and emotional abuse that you have experienced causes you, to have a panic attack. Something, it can be maybe not psychological, but physical.
Yes.
It can be something physical that happened that triggers that panic attack. It can be even medication. You're taking a medication and it happens that it causes. So there always something that triggers your behavior to causes the behavior to react into a certain way.
What would you say to the person that they're going through these changes and they just are too embarrassed to talk about it? They're sweeping it under the rug. They're feeling overwhelmed and they're at that breaking point. What would you say to that individual?
You have to, one day at a time. I always say one day at a time, and try and live in the here and now. The here and
Yes.
now, deal with small things, what is happening to you, um, you know and get yourself to a place where you can, if you don't want to talk with someone, um, find a hobby to do. Walk, dancing, exercising, because that helps with your stress, right? And you find yourself not being stressful as much as you used to be. So if you don't want to talk with a professional, start a hobby, crafting, gardening. It's harvest time. Go out and harvest whatever you have planted, or do something that to take your mind off of your situation. Volunteering, it helps, and it helps to make you feel more productive. The key
I
thing is
agree.
for you to feel productive. Once you're not feeling productive, then you are going to mask. You
That
mask
is so
because you
true.
fear. You
That is so
fear something,
true.
stigma or discrimination. You fear something is going to happen. But sometimes when you take yourself out of your situation and take the first step in
It's
doing
true. It's
something,
true.
it helps. And then
It's true.
after that, I would suggest that you seek a professional, because
I
sometimes your
agree.
trauma is so deep that psychoeducation cannot help, and you have to use medication to
Yes.
help you to manage yourself.
There's a comment from Juliet here saying mental health is a part of our overall health. It is not separate. So it stands to reason that we must incorporate this in our wellness plan. And I couldn't agree with that more.
True. And mental health, what people don't understand, your mental health is how you deal with your daily activities daily. So
Yes.
mental health disorder is different from mental health.
Yes.
Mental health disorder and concern are your anxiety, your stress, your trauma, and the negative things that you have experienced throughout your life or daily is your mental health issues or concern. Now, mental health is your well-being, as what
Yes.
Juliet has just mentioned, is your
Yes.
well-being. And how you take the time out to build on yourself daily.
Yes.
Yes.
And it's an investment. Wouldn't you call that an investment in yourself?
100% investment. Yes.
Yes,
Yes, it
I
is.
think that's so important. I know that sometimes uncertainty in life can trigger a lot of things. I mean, financial instability, relationship breakups, all these things. I know that a lot of people are unsure on how to navigate when they're going through these situations. How important is it to take the time? Like, if okay, I'm in a financial struggle, or it's a breakup, whatever it don't you think it's important to have that conversation with someone? Or if it's a financial situation, what can I do to get out of it? But at the same time, learning to stay present and not trying to jump into the future, like trying to solve this, becoming obsessed with it, that you
Right.
lose sight of your present life.
Right. But that individual has to take awareness. He or she has to understand that something is happening. If
Yes.
that person do not acknowledge that something is happening to he or she, then that person is not going to change. They have to take awareness and go through the stages of change. And if there's no awareness and acceptance, then there is no change. So you have to take awareness, and you have to accept that you are having some sort of issues. And if you cannot
Yes.
accept it, then you're going to go through the motions of not seeing that something is happening, so you can help to build on yourself daily. And this is where this person may say, wear a mask, because I don't feel like something is happening to me. I can manage myself.
Yes. Yes.
Not taking responsibility for or accepting what is happening.
What are some of the signs of emotional masking?
Some of the signs of emotional masking: burnout, isolation, fear of stigma and discrimination, um, identity crisis. You're always into identity, some sort of identity issues, feeling of loneliness, a big one, being lonely, you know all of those causes you sudden changes in your behavior. If you find that you have sudden changes in your behavior,
Yes.
something is happening to you. If you are a person who is a social butterfly, and then all of a sudden you are isolating, something is happening to you. Or it's the opposite. If you find that you are an what you call it, introvert, right? And you find yourself become a social butterfly, something is happening. What are you masking? Something is happening. So you have to check yourself to see what is happening to you daily. I
Yes.
always say, have a notepad and journal, write the time of day, the signs and signals of whatever is happening. If you find yourself cannot make poor contact with something, eye contact with something, it's okay. And it's a cultural uh issues, or I may say some culture may not make eye contact. But if you are a person always making eye contact, and something you not making eye contact with someone, it means that
Yes.
something is happening. You're rehearsing your conversation, saying the same thing over and over and over. Emotional disconnection. If you find that, I have had clients do not pain. I can't feel pain. I can't cry, or I can't feel love. Emotional disconnection. Something is happening. Hiding your
Karen
behavior.
says, Karen is saying it's amazing our ability to mask our past
Yeah,
hurts and pain.
yeah.
And it seems that it can ruin our relationships with family and even our ability to thrive.
Yes. And I must say that sometimes, some not masking, it helps. It helps because at a particular time, you're not ready to deal with it.
Yes.
So it protects you, you know, it's a form of coping mechanism for
Yes.
individual to
Yes.
so sometimes it works. It depends on the time, the situation, and what is happening to you, so you can able to use those skills, masking skills.
So, what are some of the tools that emotional maskers can utilize to modify their behavior, this
All
behavior?
right, some of the tools are, I would first of all, therapy. because you need psycho education
I
and
agree.
you know about meditation. There are different forms of meditation. You have to find the one that you connect with. No one is forcing you into yoga or whatever. Find the form of meditation that you can connect with. Grounding exercises. I love grounding exercises, right? And, expressing yourself in different forms, like walking, laughing, self evaluation. I love self
Me
evaluation.
too.
Daily self-evaluation, journaling. You journal of what is happening. You can become rich by journaling. Connecting with good memories, connecting with the positive things that is happening or have happened to you. Not every day and throughout your life things are bad.
True.
People always stay on the negative, the things, the bad things. What are the good things that happened in the relationship? you
Yes.
know, and then help daily, positive daily affirmation to build your self-esteem, because masking, sometimes you mask because you have low self-esteem.
Yes.
That's one of the reason why you mask, right? Different. And
Yes.
if it build your self-worth. Yeah. So a daily affirmation, start doing your hygiene, get up in the morning, comb your hair, brush your hair, do something to make you feel good. Take care of yourself. Take care of your children, if you have children, your dog, your house. Do things to make you feel good. Have a routine. Start a routine. Start small
Yes.
with routine, smart goals. Do these little things, that these are things that we neglect. And if we start doing these simple things, starting with your smart goals, the short term, then you move to long term, things that are you can get done in a time frame, you
Yes.
know, it will help. And these things are important. Right. And always
Agree.
stress these things before you actually seek a therapy,
Yes.
because when you go in for therapy, these are the things we are going to tell you to do as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
How important is self love in all of this? I can tell you that when I really got to that point, because I struggled with that for a long time. But
Mhm.
once I really understood my value, my faith in God, I got to that point. I read a book. Oh gosh, it was about a relationship with God, knowing
Mhm.
God. And
Yeah.
that book changed my life
Mhm.
because I'm a Seventh-day Adventist. We're known for studying the Bible. I'm telling you. But this book changed my life in such a way because it helped me to understand that I am loved by God, which
Right.
in turn helped me to learn to love myself.
Mhm.
In loving myself, it changed my perspective on everything about my life
Mhm.
because then I became more intentional about
Right.
healing from the
Mhm.
past hurts. I didn't
Mhm.
want to sit and dwell on them anymore. I wanted to heal and move forward. And what I had to learn was that past rejections and past hurts, well, guess what? If I don't allow myself to heal, I'm rejecting myself. I'm inflicting the hurt upon myself. So
Mhm.
it's like if I know I'm loved by God, I think I'm worth the time and effort to heal. And that was
Mhm.
one of the reasons why I started this podcast because I say it all the time. I'm on a healing journey and I want
Mhm.
others to take this healing journey with me.
Very good. Very good, Bree. You touch on that topic, and many of us have lived in certain, grew up into certain cultural diversity and certain culture, and it's good culture. I'm from Jamaica, but we self our self esteem very low
Yes.
because of how it's a pattern. My parents or that person's parents didn't know how to talk to their kids, know how to kind of say the right things, and it comes up where you have low self-esteem and low self-worth. So you're not, you grow up not loving yourself,
Yes.
and you mask it you know, because you don't know the tools or don't know how to start to love yourself. And you go into these relationships expecting love.
It's true.
And, they themselves don't know how to love too,
It's the
because they were
truth.
in the same position as yourself. And as
It's
I
true.
mentioned, hurt people,
Hurt
and
people.
they connected. They connect, right? And cultural diversity has caused us to have shape us, and has caused us to have so much trauma. But as we grow, as I heard you said, you read, and you learn the tools to build on your self-love. I must share this, because growing up, I used to mask my feelings,
Yes.
right? I was strong, but I my self-esteem was so low. And I used to use my clothes, dressing up, you know, to mask my feeling. How many of us mask your feeling, but thinking that you can put on this expensive clothes, or this,
Right.
brand name clothes, just to cover the hurt and the pain that you're feeling.
It's
And it's
true.
it's it's, it's a pattern, because it started from your child, your mom, then a child, then you pass it on to your child, and somehow, if it's not broken, it continues. But
True.
at a particular time in my life, I masked my feeling, and I was to the point where I was suicidal. I had suicidal ideation. And when I was younger, I had several suicidal attempts. And people will not talk about their suicidal attempts, but it's something that you need to talk about,
I agree.
so that you can get help, right? And
Yes.
if you go back over your life, and go back and you think about how many times you want to be out of this world. I just want to be out of this world. No, I'm not suicidal. That's what you say. Yes, you have suicidal ideations. And this
Yes.
is caused by your hurt and your pain, and you're trying to mask them because you can deal with them. And
Yes.
this is where you have to seek help to build your confidence. Because if your confidence is not built, then you're going to have low self-worth,
It's
you
true.
low self-esteem, and you're not going to have that strength to take you through daily, that daily strength. Because the strength yesterday, you cannot use it
It's true.
spiritually, you know, things, new things, right? Every day you have new things, new strength. So you have to work on yourself daily. You have to, your resilience is important.
Yes.
You have to build your
Yes.
resilience, right?
Karen talks about some people becoming an overperformer for people to
Right.
accept them. And Juliet
Yes.
is saying, yes, I agree. And thank you for being so open and honest about your past. And
Yes.
support groups are also very helpful.
Right.
Definitely.
Right.
Definitely.
I recommend, there are so many supports group out there, and I recommend them. Now I'm strong. I can help you,
Yes.
right? My journey helps me to help you, so you
Yes.
can be stronger. And I can identify individual who are going through certain things. And support groups are important. And because there's always someone in that support group who have been through, when you think that you have been through the worst, when you go into these support groups, you say to yourself, wow, my
It's
story
true.
is nothing,
It's true.
you know.
It's true. It's definitely the truth. I'd like to share with the viewers how I met you. You
Before
know,
someone had mentioned the overperformer, let's deal with that, because it's back again.
oh,
Yes, sometimes.
Karen, she says here, you can become an overperformer to get people to accept you.
Right, sometimes when you want to you're doing too much. And oftentimes it goes back to that self-worth
Yes.
and that self-esteem, because something is happening where you want to be in that circle. So you're doing so much performing, and there's maybe sometimes you don't have any balance, you don't have any boundaries.
Doesn't that
Something,
lead to burnout, to a very often
burnout,
a lot of
yeah.
resentment?
Right,
Because after a
right,
while, it's like
right,
you're doing stuff that you don't really
right,
want to do, but I
right,
mean, to be
right,
accepted.
right. Setting those boundaries, And those routines will help boundaries,
Yes.
helps relationship boundaries, and emotional boundaries are important. Workplace boundaries, so that you don't become an
So
over
important.
performer in the
So
workplace
important.
as well, or with your friends. Okay,
So
Brie,
im
yes.
so no, that's so important, but, I wanted to share with the viewers because a lot of my viewers are my past Titchfield schoolmates,
Yes.
and, it's like recently, I reached out to a friend and asked her would she come on the podcast, would she agree to? So I asked her, "Hey, do you know anyone that would like to be a guest?" So she told me, "I have a friend that I think would like to do it." And I sent you the episode with Juliet, and you texted me and you said she mentioned that she's from Portland. Well, I'm from Portland too. And I said, "Really?" And then it came out that you attended Titchfield High School. And I was like just blown away. And I said, it's just amazing how God works because,
Right.
like I said, most of my guests attended Titchfield. But I'm like, even when I wasn't looking for a guest from Titchfield, I found another one. So I felt very blessed because our communicating via text has been it's been a blessing to me, and I just admire what you stand for and what you're doing and your openness. And
Yes.
I know that you wanted to share your testimony with the viewers, so I would definitely like you to go ahead and do so.
Right. I am Teachfield, graduated in 85. I'm going, graduated from Teachfield High School in 85. And I went to Shortwood Teachers College, and I taught St. Aloysius Primary for Bull Bay All Age, 5 years at St. Aloysius Primary, Bull Bay, and All Age, and several different places, and until I migrated. Yes, growing up, I had the best mom. And, as a child, we often don't think that our parents are actually doing the best. I had the best mom, but I was rebellious too, Brie, because when you are not listening, you tend to want to do the opposite of what your parents trying to do. And I grew up with a very low self-esteem, as I mentioned, but I used to mask it with different things, risky behaviors, talking to boys, and because I felt comfortable talking to boys, and so forth. And that's another way I used to mask my emotions as well. And I used to do things that weren't right. I lied. A lot of people mask their emotions by lying. I used to lie. But what I want to talk to you about, I during my teenage life, I experienced suicidal ideations, right? And there was a time I tried to commit suicide, and it didn't happen. And I masked my feeling, and went on. I got married because I thought that, being married could have solved my, whatever is happening to me, but it didn't solve it. I, stayed in the marriage for 5 years, but it was difficult. And let it be known, my ex husband wasn't at fault. I brought in my issues into the relationship. He had issues. So I thought that my concerns and my issues would solve, but they did not, because more issues came, and it became toxic, right? When you're married, you ishe, that term, and you do things that you regret. And I did things that I regretted, and it made me uh sad. I became sad all over again, lonely, sad, worthless again. Felt like I couldn't get a break. And I was a professional, going to work every day, but my emotions were so messed up, to the point that didn't know how I survived. I remember one point after the divorce, um, I felt like this was it. I could not survive without this individual. And once again, I wanted to take my life because uh attachment. I was attached to this individual. Could
Yes.
not see myself living away from this individual. And oftentimes when you experience rejection and in your life, it's hard when you have been rejected. You
Very
cannot
hard.
deal with the rejection. I could not
Right.
deal with the rejection. So what you think I wanted to do? I wanted to kill myself again. I remember driving on Mandela's highway, and I just wanted to run my car into a trailer. My son was at the back, but I didn't care. And I remember while I was driving, my son was talking to someone driving on the same side on Mandela Highway. He was around 4. And Bree, I was looked over and said, who are you talking to? And he said, Mommy, the man in the van. The man slowed down and I slowed down. And he said, wind your window down. I winded my window down. He said, you are a beautiful young lady. That was my angel. It was an angel, Bree, that saved my life. And I said,
Yeah.
wow. And that's where the spirituality comes in. And I said, wow, look at that. I didn't want my life. I didn't see where I wanted to live. I wanted to just, and many of you may be thinking this right now, but I'm telling you, there is hope. There is a
There is
chance
hope.
for you. There is hope. Take off the mask. So I decided to take off the mask and I went to church. The church I went to, I'm going to call the name, is Fellowship Tabernacle. It was at Halfway Tree Road, right where the JIS building used to be. There was that building. There used to be at that back. And Bree, I disliked the church. I didn't like church people because I grew up in the church and I felt like all the people that goes to church, they are hypocrites. So I had no dealing with church. But I went in and I sat at the back for almost 2 months. And
Wow.
then, I said, Lord, I don't want anyone to say anything to me. No one come up to me and try to pray for me. I do not want it. I'm just going to slam them. But I sat there until one day I heard a song. And this song is I surrender all to Jesus. With my son in my arm, Bree, on that Sunday morning, nobody forced me, but I walked up to the pulpit, right up to, that wherever they were calling for people to be saved. And on that day, I gave my life. And I said, God, enough is enough. I take responsibility for my action. I'm aware of what is happening to me, and I want change, and I want it now. And that was the beginning of my change, Brie. And I
That-
mean, I'm still a woman of God. I'm now a minister. I'm now helping people.
That's a blessing. That is such a blessing because it leads to the last question that I have was, can our faith play a role in the healing process? I
Yes.
know
And
it definitely did that for me.
mhm.
I went through a season of solitude. I've spent a lot of time in the Word. I've read so many different books. I've watched a lot of videos. But it was that renewal that I started to experience. And I learned that what I was trying to fill myself up with could only come from God. I was looking for this in relationships. You think if you attain a certain status or whatever, it's going to fill that hole. But I think that can only come from God. So, what is your take on that?
Yes, faith gives you strength. And I say that there are people of different faith. I do not
Yes.
bash your faith. I love that you have found whoever and whatever a source that you can connect with.
Yes.
My source is God,
Yes.
and that's my source. So if you have a higher power or whoever or whatever, I'm not going to bash you because you have to start somewhere.
Yes.
And whatever your religion, no, I support you to go where you have that connectivity. You go where you have that strength that you can grow and be successful. So I said, faith gives you hope and strength to persevere through whatever causing your emotional masking.
Yes, definitely. Karen is saying, "Oh my goodness, your story resonates with me. Thank you for sharing your story." Juliet says, "Praise God, incredible story. Yes, there is hope for all of those who may be feeling this way. You are not alone. This happens more often than we think. Profound story. Thank you for sharing your story." I think
I want to
there is,
share something with you. One of my
go ahead.
classmates from Teachfield, Donette White, she's
Yes,
on, and I
she's
just
on.
saw it.
Welcome, Donna.
Donette and I
Yes.
went to Teachfield together, and I am often on her show as well,
Okay.
on the radio. And she said, "I'm proud of you." And I want to share this. It's my faith has given me the strength to live daily and to renew my strength daily. Because if I'm not renewed daily, Bree, that's where my weakness or my
It's true.
weaknesses
I
will
agree.
pull me down. So I
I
have to
agree.
renew my faith in God daily, my
We
strength.
have to stay in the word. There's a comment from my friend Stephanie. She says, "I wonder just how God does that. Why is it that some people, myself included, can connect to that voice, but others can't?" You know, I'm going to give you the opportunity to answer, but I would like to say from my own personal experience, I think sometimes we have to be still long enough. I think quiet time is very important because I think that gives you the perfect opportunity to hear God's guidance. No, it may not be an audible voice, but I think God communicates with all of us. What's your opinion on that,
My
Maxine?
opinion is just like how you have two sides to you. You have a good and the bad that speaks to you, and oftentimes you shut out the voice of the good, so you cannot connect with the good. You tend to want to lean onto your own understanding and not God's way. And at one point in my life, I was not ready to connect. So you have to be ready, because I
It's
remember I wasn't ready. I didn't want to. I mean, I was like, God, it's when you're retired, right? And live my life because I want to live my life. So you have to have the place when you are ready to make that choice that it's you are going to give your life to God. And if you're not ready, that's okay. God is there with loving arms, ready, waiting for you to come home.
I definitely agree with that. Maxine, I think your story will help so many viewers. And for those who watch the replay, please feel free to comment. Maxine, I would definitely love to have you back on.
Thank
I
you very much.
really enjoyed our conversation. And, I would like to encourage the viewers, if you are struggling with masking, whatever it is, it's okay to seek therapy. It's okay to reach out to a pastor, to a good friend, but communicate with someone. Don't hold it in. Don't suffer in silence. I'd like
Bree,
to
before
ask.
you go, can I
Yes.
say something before you go?
Yes, I
If
would
you
like
are
to. I was about
experiencing
to ask you, do you have any closing thoughts?
Yes, if you are experiencing any suicidal thoughts or ideations, or you want to take your life, please call um, 988. I have to give that out, Bree.
Yes.
Call 988, just 988. Talk with someone, find a
Yes.
support group, find someone,
Yes.
unmask.
Yes.
Men, many male, it's hard for you males, you are out there, it's hard for you to unmask. Talk
Yes.
with someone, don't keep it to yourself. I know I'm talking with someone right now because you're going through an emotional roller coaster, and that roller coaster is going and
Wow.
up and down. But here am I. Find someone that you can trust to talk with. 988. No, it's confidential. And then they will direct you into the right place, who you can talk, the counseling that you can get. Do not stay, you know, And I'm saying sometimes when you mask, you get angry, and you want that anger goes into different places, like you want to kill someone, you want to hurt someone. Please talk with someone.
Yes. Yes. Let's
Talk with
talk
someone.
about hope
Talk about.
before we go off. Let's talk about the importance of hope. I remember being in that dark place. I just didn't feel I could carry on after my son died. I just lost hope. But I thank God that He didn't give up on me. And I thank God for therapy
Yes.
because it brought me back to that place where if you would have told me then that I would laugh again, that I would want to travel, that I would want to do fun things, I do. That sadness will always be there about my son. But I can
Yes.
tell you that I embrace life to the fullest. I thank God for his saving grace. I thank him for bringing people like you into my life. I'm
Yes.
very thankful for my friends who have been very supportive. I'm thankful to the viewers who tune in every week. When I think of all the things they could be doing on a Sunday evening, they're tuning into my podcast. I'm very appreciative of it. But I just feel like what if I had given up? Then I would not have experienced this. So I would like to say to the viewers, there is always hope. Please don't ever give up.
Right.
And it's like it just means so much to me that that we can pray and that we can reach out to people like yourself, like to Juliet, good therapists out there who
Right.
can guide people back to life.
Right.
Because sometimes I think it's okay to talk to a friend, but sometimes I think there's nothing better than talking to a professional.
Yes. Yes, there's always hope. Don't give up on yourself. Someone out there is waiting to hear your story so you can save them. Like you, I'm telling my story and it giving you some hope. So make sure that you are alive to tell someone of your
Yes.
story.
Yes, I think it's a beautiful thing when we share, when we
Yes,
come together and share our stories because there's someone out there that can resonate with your experience and
right,
you will give that individual hope,
right.
and that push that they need. So I really appreciate you coming on tonight. I hope that you will come back.
Sure. Thank you,
I
Bree.
would love to have you back. I
I
would
love it, and I love everything that you are doing. Keep on doing what you're doing, and
thank you.
it's not for the success, but it's for the help of
Yes,
others. Right? Thank you so
definitely.
much, and thank you,
Definitely.
listeners and viewers.
Thank you. And please tell the viewers before we tune out, please tell them about your ministry. You have your
Oh,
ministry page on Facebook, so please feel free to share that.
I have Woven's Ministry. It's on Facebook, WOVEN Ministries. Every Monday, I have a prayer line. Now, you have to, once you have gone through the process, you have to find something that you can do and something that you love to hold on to, like Bree, finding something that she can do to hold on to give you more hope. So I love praying and I love talking about God. So I have a ministry that we pray every Monday, and sometimes I may have guest speakers to come on and share the word, or not just the word, is holistic, because I feel like you should be an all-rounder. You're not supposed to be all that spiritual. You have to know how to balance the checkbook, talk about mental health, talk about exercising, talk about the things that allow you to be well, your mental health and your wellness. So this is what we I do every Monday, and I go around and have workshops. I've been to Jamaica, do workshops with the teachers, or wherever I'm called to do workshops, so that I can build you up and people are strengthened.
And you recently got married, didn't
Yes,
you?
I recently got married. I met my husband via the prayer line. Yeah.
Oh,
So
wow.
sometimes you never know where you're gonna meet someone. Right. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
wonderful. That's
Yeah.
wonderful. For all of you who tuned in tonight, Mikey, thank you so much for tuning in. Donna, all of you, Juliet, Karen, Irene, Stephanie, thank you so much for tuning in. This conversation really meant a lot to me tonight, and I pray that it'll be a blessing to many.
Thank you so much, Bree,
You're
for
welcome.
having me. I enjoyed it.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Good night, everyone. And I'm